Hello, everyone. This is Sanjeev Tyagi again, and welcome to day 18 of the 30-day live challenge that we are hosting on Facebook and other places like YouTube and Instagram. So, the topic for today on day 18 is what I have learned from arguing with love, right? Because not every argument is a fight, right? It's not fight. Some arguments are an invitation to love louder, actually. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a moment where voices rise? Not in anger, but in intensity, where two people care so deeply about whatever they're saying that even disagreements feel like love trying to be heard, right? That's what today is about. It's not about fighting, it's not about yelling, but the kind of honest, raw, soul level friction that comes when love wants more space to speak, right? You want to express yourself. You just want the other person to understand you. You don't hate them, right? You don't dislike them, but you are feeling, I wish they understand me. And the argument continues, right? Because argument with love is different. It's a different kind of an argument. It's not about power, right? It's about presence. Are you present in that argument, right? And if you have ever had a moment where you stood sort of toe to toe with someone you love, not to win but to be understood, then this is the life for you. This is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Right? So let me ask you this. What happens when we mistake conflict for disconnection? Right? Let's clear something up now. We have been taught that any kind of conflict is equal to something wrong, right? There's something wrong, and therefore we have a conflict. So in our mind, and whenever they taught us, our teachers, our parents, our society, right, our siblings, our friends, whoever, there's an inherent belief that wherever there's a conflict, there's something wrong. Well, that a disagreement means the relationship is breaking, right? That's the normal tendency or normal understanding. Conflict is equal to something's wrong. But the truth is something else, right? The truth is that sometimes the most connected moments actually come from the tension, right? Because when you are grounded in love, even an argument can be an invitation for alignment. It can be sacred. It can be profoundly understanding and revealing about yourself, right? So the emotional cost of avoiding conflict is actually high, right? We stuff it down. We sort of sugarcoat it, right? We perform peace while our truth sits unspoken. It is sinking and we just don't express it. We just sugarcoat it as if everything is fine. And in that process, we lose that rawness that makes relationship real, right? Powerful, connecting, bonding. The rawness is needed sometimes in order for the relationship to be strong, right? You cannot have a happy moments all the time and then continue to have a positive relationship all the time. No. What happens when there are ups and downs? If we don't understand and we don't give space for those kind of situations with a loving intention, with a loving heart, then of course those situations will feel stressful and as if, you know, eliminating you from the whole scheme there, or your existence. But that's not true. That rawness makes relationship real, provided you understand how that is, right? Because arguing with love is not about aggression, right? It's about the courage to say that I love you enough to show up fully, even when it is messy. Even when it is messy, I'm here to listen and understand. That's the kind of love and an argument in that love I'm talking about, right? You must know how to argue in a proper manner so that you don't lose love in the process, right? So let's call back the energy of that connection and do the grounding ritual as we always do when we begin our process of life. So let's call that energy back and that energy of connection. Okay. So before we go deeper, let's ground. As always, place your hand over your heart and close your eyes and breathe in, hold, out. One more. Hold, out. And now whisper softly. Even when there's friction, I choose love. Even when there's friction, I choose love. Say it again. Even when there's friction, I choose love. And let it settle. Let your nervous system settle and let it know that conversation is safe and that your presence is enough. And the love, the true love, can hold all of you. Take a deep breath again. Hold and out. And let's hold that intention of presence, right, throughout this life. And form an intention that you do wish to understand the depth of this life that we are having today. Because it can be a transformative experience once you understand this very simple fact, how to argue properly with love, because that leads to a very strong foundation of relationship. Plus, it also allows you the freedom to be and say and express your truth to the other person in the manner that actually reveals to each other your true self, and still hold the true love between the two, right? And it could be anybody, it could be your friend, it could be your family, mother, father, brother, sister, husband, wife, whoever. Once you know how to argue and what is the right way to argue, what is argument all about, you will understand that it is a very it's a beautiful part of relationship, and it does not need to be dreaded, and argument is not equal to that there's something wrong, right? Because disagreements are not breaks in love, right? They they are the test of the depth of your relationship. So they're not breaks, right? They are the depth. They teach you, they're the test of the depth. They teach you how deep your relationship is actually. Is it just one of those superficial things where you say something and I'm out of here? Is that kind of a relationship? And I see that relationship, you know, very much prevalent today in today's world, where they will say, "Oh, honey, I love you," and the next thing they say is, "Okay, goodbye, we are breaking up," because they could not stand just one simple argument. That's not who you are. You're much better than that. You deserve better than that. The people in your life deserve better than that. And life deserves better than that from you and for you, right? So don't look at disagreements as a cancellation certificate, right? It's not a break in your love. It's a test that you just have to happily go through, pass as an exam, as a game of life, right? Because that allows you to see where you stand in your relationship, right? So let me say something we don't often hear. And like I said, disagreement is not disconnection. That's the soul's way of saying, I am I am ready to deepen the relationship. That's the soul's way of saying it, right? When we argue with someone we love, we are not breaking that relationship. We are trying to expand it, right? We are trying to say, I want to feel more seen, right? I want to feel more known, and I want to feel more safe with you. That's essentially what that argument is saying. And you can have whatever meaning you want from that argument, but the fact that an argument exists, that's what it's trying to express. That's what it's trying to say. I want to feel more seen, more known, more heard, right? More safe in this relationship with you and around you. And once we understand that, it changes everything. And in my life, I have learned this, especially with my kids as a parent. Um, as with my kids, even the most emotionally charged conversation never felt like a break in love, right? Because they never were. No matter how emotionally charged, how emotionally disconnected one might feel, when you have love sitting at the top of everything, anything below this becomes immaterial. It just becomes immaterial. So when we say, I love you, that's not just a sentence, it's the whole life there, right? It's the whole life. And if you don't value that statement, I don't think that you have the right to make that statement at all. When you say I love you, you need to understand the depth of that statement. That I love you cannot be conditional, right? It cannot be the reason to separate when an argument shows up. It should not just fly away out of the window as soon as, you know, a hard time or a hard situation or life situation shows its face, in front of that relationship. If your love vanishes because of that, that's not love. That was something else, and then you were just thinking that it was love. It never was, right? So the argument or the conversation that sometimes feels emotionally charged can actually act as a bridge, right? Not raised voices, but raised awareness, right? So think of it like that those are not the raised voices, but raised awareness. They are allowing you to raise your awareness. It's not conflict, but sort of closeness trying to rebalance, right? That's what it is. You may be leaning in one direction or the other, but when an argument steps in, the intention of that argument is to rebalance, to recalibrate that relationship, and to balance it out so that both the parties are actually in a state of understanding each other. And that should be the intention in an argument. Argument is not about winning, right? Argument is about understanding. So when we have an argument in our family, that's the point, right? We don't try to fix each other. I don't try to fix my wife. I don't try to fix my kids. I feel with them, right? I speak with care. And sometimes it can escalate to, and rub the rough way. But at the end of the day, that's not what needs to be remembered, or that's not what needs to be taken to heart. There's a bigger picture, and that is just a small part or a fragment of the whole relationship, right? So yes, we must speak with care, even when it's hard. It actually is. Sometimes with kids it is hard. Sometimes with people who you love, expressing yourself with 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 a decent tone can feel really hard, right? And even when we don't fully agree, because we have to understand that the bond comes first, and it always holds, right? No matter what. So we need to understand the true meaning of argument, and that's why I titled this live, "What I Learned from Arguing with Love." Right? Think about that statement for a minute, and then see what reflection it brings about in your heart and in your mind. So let's take a look at some of the insights that we can gain from this conversation, right? One, when you stay regulated, you become the safe space, right? When you become regulated, you become the safe space. See, arguments don't have to escalate, right? Because energy is contagious. You need to remember that. When you stay calm, not distance, not away, not present, but present and grounded, you sort of shift the entire atmosphere around you. It happens. And in that space, you're not silencing them, right? You're trying to invite them, invite the truth, invite healing, invite growth, invite bond, right? Invite compassion, invite understanding. That's what is happening when you stay calm, right? And in our home, even Even the most intense discussions have sort of one underlying principle, one underlying rule that we have, that love stays in the room. We don't we don't weaponize silence, right? We never shame emotions. We stay, we breathe, we honor, we understand, we try to understand each other when a situation gets tough. That's how we do it in our home. Are we successful every time? No, we're not successful every time, but the intention is always there. And because we have that intention, no argument feels the end of the world for us. It does not feel like that, no matter how bad the situation gets, because that's the energy we bring to the table, right? We may not in that moment be in a state of our being to be able to understand the other person appropriately the way it is intended, but there's an underlying energy, that's living underneath that argument or argumentative state that says, at the end of the day, love wins. Period. And that's where it ends. So that's something of a takeaway that you can have from this conversation. The other is that not every difference needs a decision, right? Not every difference needs a decision. Sometimes we argue because we think we have to resolve everything now, right? We do sometimes feel like that it needs to be resolved right now, otherwise we can't move forward. Well, we talked about it in other lives also. There's always a possibility to move forward. The change that is needed is an intentionality, and an intention, or the energy, an open, grounded energy, that, or a perspective that allows you to move forward. You are not stuck. You just think that you are stuck, and therefore you feel stuck, right? So it's true that sometimes we do feel that everything needs to be resolved right now. But love doesn't demand immediate clarity, right? If it is truly love, it does not demand immediate clarity. It allows for the space to exist, right? With my kids, I have learned to say, let's both take time with this, right? Let's think through. Let's talk about it maybe a little later. Not as an avoidance, of course. I never want to avoid anything with my kids, no matter how hard that situation is. I've told my kids, innumerable times, that you do not have to agree with me, not even 1%, if your heart does not align with what I'm saying. No matter how hard I may come at you, you need to stand for what you believe, right? So I never avoid anything from them. If they have a thing that they need to express, they are always allowed to express, no matter if it is in alignment with what I'm saying or not, right? So that's not an avoidance, but it's a pause. It's a pause for both of us to understand what's going on, because some answers, they only come to you when the emotions soften. When we are in a hyper state, we are vibrating at a hyper speed or hyper vibration, right? Hyper frequency, and the answer, which is in alignment with the understanding, may not be here. So if you're in that state for too long, you obviously don't have access to the answer in that state anyways. And when you understand that that's the case, well, slowly and gradually you understand, you come to a realization that when such a state occurs, the logical thing for you to do is to just let the emotions settle so that you can access the answer and understanding from this situation, right? And that's why love allows time. It does not force, it does not force the unity, it allows for the time, right? It trusts the bond to hold space for that process, because there is a process. Otherwise, why would this thing, anything happen in your life, right? So that's another takeaway. The third is that your presence is more important than being right, and we discussed this in one of the previous lives as well. Are you trying to win the battle, or something? I forgot the title of that live, but it was something like that. So your presence is more important than being right. And and sort of, I can say that this one is actually personal to me, and it's powerful as well, because being right is the ego's goal, right? Being right is the ego's goal, and being with someone, that's the love's mission. Love will never be about me and me only, or seclusion, or exclusion. It will never be about that. Love is always about inclusion. It's about the connection, bonding, to be with someone, to be with the thought, right? To be with the understanding, to be with the growth, with the expansion of the awareness of the self, right? That's what soul's mission is: connection, bonding, awareness, self reflection. Ego, on the other hand, is all about the self, right? Me, and excluding others from me. That's the structure of ego. Ego is not bad, all right? Ego is definitely not bad. It's one of the most integral part of your existence, of your presence. If it were not for ego, you would not even exist. And we'll talk about that in another live. In fact, let that be the title for tomorrow, to understand the structure of ego. And it's going to be interesting. I definitely urge you to tune in tomorrow, and let us reflect on this together. So ego is all about being right, and on the other hand, soul is about being with someone, with 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 the mission of connection and bond. And I have never used love as a leverage, right? I've never withdrawn connection to control anything, right? Connection is the primary thing, that is an underlying vibration in anything and everything that I do. So I never withdraw that connection to hold the control. I never use it as a leverage, because when I argue with love, I I try to stay, right? I soften as much as I can, as much as my vibration in that moment allows me. I know that it does better now. And I lead with sort of curiosity. I try not to get into the correction mode. And that's what the argument, or a situation that is hard, allows me to do now. I was never like that, you know, to begin with. Like I shared in the other lives also, I used to be a short-tempered person. Have I improved completely? Maybe not, but I am improving every day. as much as I understand love, as much I understand life, as much I understand the vibration, the energy, the connection, um, the purpose of our existence, the more I learn, the more it makes sense how things are the way they are, right? So I always lead with curiosity in that. And that presence that we're talking about, that's what makes the children, the partner, then your wife, your husband, right, your family, your friends, your colleagues at in office or in the environment where you're working. That is what allows them to feel safe, right? Your presence, no matter how loud the emotions get, as long as you're present, they will feel safe in expressing themselves to you and in front of you, and they will always be willing to listen to you because they see an intention of understanding in and from you, right? So that's another learning we can take away from this conversation here at the live. So let's move on to the soul questions, right? It's to open your heart. No, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not opening your heart to operate on it, but in a way I am, right? That is my intention, to open the heart and help you see what is sitting inside of it. So the question, we are going to talk about three questions today, and they are called, as you know, soul questions. And the question number one is, when was the last time I argued with someone and underneath it I just wanted to be understood? That was my only intention in that argument, and that's all, right? When was the last time I argued with someone and underneath it all I wanted was to be understood? Think about that and write it, because this will help you recognize the deeper need that was really speaking in that moment. You will start to shift your perspective on that argument because you are able to now understand what your true intention was. It may have felt that it was all about argument. It may have felt that it was all about, you know, winning it, being standing up for you. But there was something else, something deeper. And now is the time with this question that you can explore that. Right? When was the last time I argued where my intention deeply was understood, to be understood? Question two, what's one belief I carry about conflict? Right? What is that one belief I carry about conflict that might be keeping me from deeper connection? A lot of times we talked about earlier in the conversation today that we grow up with an idea that if there is a conflict, there's something wrong, and you cannot be any further from the truth. Conflict is the spice of life, right? You will start hating your food if all that you are served is sweet. You need salt, and that conflict is the salt. A lot of people don't see it that way, and therefore they don't value conflict. They don't understand conflict. They don't understand the distance, right? The arguments. They are very valuable part of our engagement with life, right? So try to explore your idea of conflict, because the thing is that when you understand what you define conflict as, what ends up happening is that you will stop labeling people who are in the state of conflict as bad, right? Normally, what would happen is if two people are in conflict, it's a bad thing. They must be bad people. I don't want to associate with them. Things like that happen because we don't value conflict. See, if conflict exists, it is valid. Period. In energy, if there is an existence of anything, it is valuable. It is valid. Right? It has to be seen as valid. No matter how different you feel about it or how indifferent you feel about it, it is still valid. And the sooner you understand that it is valid and has a potential for growth, you will stop labeling people. You will start building connection, and you will start building bridges across those distances that usually occur because of misunderstandings on a simple argument or a simple conflict, right? That's essentially what happens. So explore your beliefs on conflict. So what is that one conflict that I carry, or one belief that I carry about conflict that might be keeping me from deeper connection, right? It shows you the stories that are silently shaping your reality. And the last one question: how do I respond when someone I love disagrees with me, right? And does that reflect who I want to be, right? How do I respond when someone I love disagrees with me? And if you look at it, it'll be very easy to figure that out. Don't try to ask your wife or your husband, of course. I'm just joking here, but really, how do I respond when someone I love disagrees with me? And how does that reflect who I want to be? Because what happens is when you explore this question, the dimensions of this question, you will realize where you stand generally on how, what beliefs you have about arguments or about silence that may come about in conflicts, right? You will start understanding conflict, you will start understanding silence, you will start understanding people who are engaged in those situations, right? So it allows you to explore your dimension, your internal dimension, and therefore allows you to reflect on it and then understand from it, become aware of where you stand, and grow from there. And therefore, because of your growth, have a different perspective and a new kind of learning that is going to be helpful for other people to learn from you, because your response in conflict will change because of that, right? You will become a new person, and people will wonder what happened to you. And then you can say, I was attending Sanjeev's live and he asked me to answer this question: how do I respond when someone I love disagrees with me? Explore this and you'll get the answer yourself, because this invites emotional self-responsibility, right? It's not guilt, not suppression or any kind, but growth. That's what it's inviting you to do. So answer these questions honestly, right? With purity of your intention to understand the deeper meaning in them. And I assure you that you will come out as a different person on the other side of these reflections. So that's where those insights stay. And let's move on to um, the micro transformation practice that we do um, by at the end of the lives every day. And today we are going to call that the love didn't leave reflection, right? The love didn't leave. So think of this. In fact, let's do it this way. Think of a recent disagreement that you had. It could be with anyone, right? Forget about who. Just think of the recent disagreement. And something something that stirred your heart, right? Really turned you in or turned you off. Think of that disagreement. And now write this statement on the top of the blank page. And I want you to write it, right? Don't just think, okay, I'm going to write it. I'll think it in the back of your mind. No, just write it on the top of the page. Right? Even here, love didn't leave. Even here, love did not leave. And then just fill it up with all your heart, right? Let your heart speak on that table, on that page. Not to justify, of course, not to analyze, but just to witness the truth, the intensity of that conflict, right? That love, the real love, stays. That's the truth that I'm talking about. Is just to witness that truth, that the real love actually stays, even when it stretches, right? Even when it trembles, even when it's learning, it stays because it knows. Because it knows that it's connected to the journey of the soul, and that ego is just a construct of the mind. Real love is deep, right? So write that. And the most important thing is the heading that I'm saying on the top of the paper. Even here, love did not leave. Because what will happen is that when you are done writing that whole page, you would have got to a point where you would start validating that I was right in having that argument. I was right in this and that. They were wrong, this and that. And when you get to that point where you are justifying and analyzing that situation, your eyes will fall back on that statement. Even here, love did not leave. And your mind will change. Your perspective will change. Your thinking will change. Right? And you will have a deeper understanding. You had a conflict, and immediately you changed the vibration on that conflict. And therefore, you are a new you. Right? And that becomes your story, that new story. So let that become your story, that of understanding, of growth, right, from the conflict. So that's why I say that not all conflicts are about stopping you from growing, right? They're not about being wrong. They're not about being disrespectful. You cannot tie everything to those standards, right? Some arguments are there for your growth. The intention of those arguments is for you to allow growth. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you got some value from this live today. And for tomorrow, like I did today, I let the energy decide. I listen, I'll tune in to whatever it says, and whatever comes through, I promise that it will meet you with meaning, right? We're not here to perform, right? We are here to remember, to connect, to bond, to understand, to elevate ourselves. That's the intention in these lives. So come back and let's unfold what's next tomorrow, right? And let's do it together. And as we end this live, as I always say, like this, if you got value from it, right? Share a moment where the love stayed in your life, even when things were hard, even when things were, not easy to go through, but you did allow the love to stay. So tag someone who needs this message today, right? I always say, and join the Healing Sibling Bonds Facebook group and other activities that we are going to be sharing, as time progresses. Like I said, I'm building tools and healing stories and guidance, soul-led guidance. So there's a lot of things that are coming along as we progress through the days, and I'll keep you posted on them. And as always, remember that word that is a tagline for us now, and the word is hope. HOPE, and it stands for help one person every day. Help one person every day. So for today, let that be the version of you who once thought that love had to be perfect to stay, right? Let that be that person, that version of you who once thought that love has to be perfect to stay. And tomorrow, let that be another person who you forward this to or you share this conversation with. That's how hope survives, right? So become a participant, active participant in hope. And I hope that your day, evening, good afternoon, or morning, wherever you are in the world, is a blessed and safe place to be, right? So have fun, enjoy life, and I'll see you tomorrow. Namaste.